if I may do this, let me offer up a rebuke to the men who came late or who've come late. Now, I'm sure you have a good reason why you are late, but one of the things we have been saying is a man needs to be a man of his word. If you signed that form saying that you are going to come, that means what? You are going to come, you are promising to come at the time when we were starting. I'm sure you have a good reason, or you've told yourself you have a good reason, but a man needs to be a man of his word. I think it is only appropriate that I give that rebuke. Even though I'm not a pastor here, I am a pastor, and men need to be men of their word. So for future, don't be late when you say you're going to be there on time. Now, in this session, we are going to talk about the roles in which the traits that we've talked about are most evident. So the roles of a godly man. Now, we're going to walk through them, and they are pretty straightforward. The roles that we're going to talk about are pretty straightforward. Some of them you do even know them. But the first one that I want us to begin with, and perhaps, what is the greatest commandment? Yes. Love. Love the Lord your God with all your heart. You know, sometimes as we don't think highly of this. We don't think that this is something that is our role as men. But a godly man is a worshiper. If scripture teaches us anything, is that God in his word has made all of creation an instrument for us to worship him. Look at the Psalms. Look at Psalms 19. The heavens declare the glory of God. How do we know that? We observe it. Why has God given us eyes to observe it? That we might worship him. Think about how scripture works. God does something. That something reveals something about God. And what is the response that we are called to have? Worship, reverence. A man is nothing if he does not worship. So a godly man must be a worshiper. That means he must live under God's authority. To be a worshiper means that you live under God's authority. We must be able, like the apostles John and Peter, to be able to say what? That in this matter, we will serve God, not man. And let me tell you, in every age, men have had to face that question. Are we going to serve God or are we going to serve man? A lot of men have capitulated on this. You know, people like to think that feminism will die when women stop following it. Feminism is only alive because men allow it. Evil men benefit from feminism. Evil men benefit from feminism. Let me give you some examples. Feminism has created a world in which a man can get sex easily outside of marriage. How did feminism allow that? It encouraged women that liberation means being sexually free. It discouraged men from telling the women under them, fathers telling their daughters, no, you can't go out dressed like that. No, you can't go there because you'll find evil men there. So that has created a world in which evil men who don't want to work hard. It used to be that a man, before he had sex, would have to do what? To marry a woman. And that would entail working hard to be a competent man that both that the lady would be attracted to and that the father of the girl would approve of. So don't think that feminism is thriving because women are following it. No, it's thriving because men are the chief beneficiaries of it. Evil men. Evil men are the chief beneficiaries of this. A man doesn't have to be the only one who provides. He can be lazy and have his wife provide, and that's seen as acceptable as well. Right? So don't lie to yourself. But if that feminism is women only, it's men are behind it. As I said, men have a monopoly on what? Right? Men have a monopoly on? Which means that whatever rights exist in this world are the rights that men allow. Right? Ni ukweli ama ni uongo? Ni ukweli. So, if you want to deal with the feminists in your home, where does the journey begin with? With you. If you say your wife is a feminist, you have the power to make her a godly and submissive woman by God's help. By God's help. So, but that begins with a man being totally devoted to God, saying that in this, as Joshua said, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Which means a man, as a worshiper, he must cultivate a personal communion with God. Be a man of prayer. Be a man of scripture. Be a man who repents. When was the last time you repented? Let me ask you that. Have you asked this? When was the last time as a man you repented of something? I'm not even talking about repenting before others, repenting before God. When was the last time you repented of something? Of something which you studied God's word and you said, I have been sinning. God be merciful to me, a sinner. When was the last time that happened in your life? It seems, by some of the expressions on your face, it seems as though you have been, I'm in the wrong church. These men here have been perfected. What do you mean repent? I've been saved. I sin. I no longer sin. The only sinner in my house is my wife and my children. The only sinner in my life are the people in my workplace. Huh? You're a little bit like Isaiah. Woe to me, for I am a man of clean lips and I dwell amongst men of unclean lips. Right? Any man who is not constantly repenting is a man who is not dwelling in the presence of God. You know, what Isaiah teaches us about the presence of God is that it causes you to see your own sin. When Isaiah saw the presence of God, what did he do? He saw his own sin. If you're not constantly seeing your own sin, then it means that you're not constantly in the presence of God. If I might also add, you know, sometimes when we talk about what is called, this is my own personal conviction, is the conviction of our church. We believe that the Bible teaches patriarchy. Now, I don't know what you think of this word, but this is what I believe the Bible teaches on biblical sexuality. Oftentimes, when people say the kinds of things that I've been saying to you about how a man should think of himself, the immediate response is that you're going to train men to be tyrants. Can I tell you what is the solution? How is it that a man can believe these things and not be a tyrant? It's because he's a worshiper. When a man dwells in the presence of God, as high as he may be in the position that he is humbled because he meets one who is greater than himself. So that's the solution. Show me a man who is a tyrant, and I'll show you a man who is not a worshiper. God humbles his people. And that means a man, as a worshiper, he must therefore lead his family in worship. You know, two simple things here. Do you bring your children, your wife and children to church? You know, I think it should be, every man should require the children living in his house and even his wife to attend the church where he goes. Yeah, let it be a fight. Let it be a fight. Sawa. Let it be a man's own fight. But win that battle. It is unacceptable that you allow your wife to go to a different church than you. How are you the leader of your family? You need to make it a requirement. You need to push hard on that issue. No, you need to leave that church and come where I am. And you don't lose that fight. By the way, let me give you this rule. As a man, and I know this is going to sound sexist, you need to win every fight that you start in your home. What do I mean win? I mean that if you said that E direction is render, you persist in it until that is followed. That means you pick your battles. You don't pick every issue at every single time. Don't be like that. But when you do decide that no, we are going to do this, you don't allow your wife or your children to ignore you. You require conformity. May mean having constant fights over the matter. Saying, no, we must do this. We must. You must. No, this is the direction we are going. Yeah, she'll fight, but eventually you keep on it until she does it. If you're the kind of man who says you want us to go in this direction, and then as soon as you face resistance, you're like the tree that is uprooted by the wind. If that's you, it's no wonder you're not the head of your family. So you need to win every fight in your household. And when I say win, I simply mean your way stands. You ensure that your way stands by being firm, not by fighting or manipulating, or you just be firm. No, this is what we're going to do. If she doesn't comply, you say no. You see, I said this is what we're going to do. What you're doing is wrong. I need you to follow me in this. We can talk about your misgivings or this, but no, this is the direction you want to go. So going back to, you need to be leading your family spiritually. So the first one is they're attending the church where you go, where you are persuaded that this is where the word of God is taught. Secondly, you're leading family worship. Family worship doesn't need to be more than 10 minutes, by the way, especially when you have small kids. Doesn't need to be more than 10 minutes. You sit down, you sit your family down, you read the scriptures to them, you teach your children a catechism or something like that, and then you pray. You sing a hymn, you pray. Doesn't have to be more than 7 minutes. If you've never done this before, there are resources you can buy where you read to your family the devotional. And then if they have a question, they ask you, and then you pray. Build that culture where you are teaching and instructing family. How are your children going to be instructed in the faith if you don't lead them in worship? You need to as a worshiper, you also need to set the spiritual atmosphere of the home. You should care about what is being watched in your home, even when you're not there. What is being listened to? What is being celebrated in your home? What is tolerated? What is ignored? What is pursued? Is Christ being honored in your home? Is sin being confronted in your home? Is prayer normal? Sometimes when I am tired, I get ashamed by my children. I want to rush them to bed and they say, Daddy, we haven't prayed. We haven't done the catechism. Boy, am I happy about that. But I also know if I make it a habit that I don't do those things, as they grow older, they will say, these things are not important. But we need to be in the business of building an atmosphere where God is honored, which may mean even ensuring that you deal with your own bad habits. If you're a man who is given to shouting, to temper, you need to deal with that. If your wife has those kinds of tendencies, you need to confront them and deal with them. You need to create an atmosphere in your home where there is the scent of the gospel, not the decay of sin there. Where, there's just, I used to joke that sometimes a man can get into his home and he feels the air, or when his wife gets angry, he feels the air changes suddenly in the room. There's just something that has changed in the. You need to work to ensure, and you bring your wife alongside in this. I'm not saying that you are persuading her. That's how you shepherd her. Do you know that you have this weakness? Let me help you deal with it. When you see your children have certain weaknesses, spiritual weaknesses, you help them. I see when a child is prone to anger, you help them deal with that anger properly. If they are prone to shouting, or to screaming, or to falling down on the ground and to cause a tantrum, you deal with that. Whether it's by a cane, or by disciplining them with a cane, or by talking to them about it, but you deal with that. You build a spiritual atmosphere where people in your household are worshippers. Then a godly man needs to be a husband. Godly man needs to be a husband. A man has been given a certain kind of energy by God. And the best way for him to expend that energy is in building a household. And for him to build a household, he needs to be a husband. A godly man must be a husband. Now, being a husband means he must accept his role as the head. By the way, let me tell you, every man here, so I was talking to you about asking you, are you the boss in your household? Now, can I tell you this? If you really examine yourself, you will find that it's very likely that you have allowed your wife to be the leader in your home because it makes it a little bit easier for you. Being a leader is hard. And a lot of men, because of the difficulty of leadership, because of the pressures of feminism, they just say, "Sawa, let me leave my role as the head." Your headship is not an ornament. It's not ornamental. It's not ceremonial like the way the British crown is ceremonial now. So in Britain has a king, but he's just a ceremonial figure. He's not an actual leader. He opens parliament and all that, but he doesn't actually make decisions. Who makes the decisions in the UK? The Prime Minister. So you're not a king like the King of England. You are like the Prime Minister. Your role is not ornamental. It's not merely a title that has duties. It is a responsibility, a delegated responsibility and authority that you've been given by God. The Bible says that the husband is the head of the wife, which means you're called to lead her. You're called to, I know this sounds scary to hear, but to rule over or to govern her. You're called to protect, to provide, to order things, to bring order into your household, and to take responsibility for the direction of your household. A lot of men want to be honored, but they are not leading in their home. They want authority without responsibility. They want a wife who submits, but they don't provide direction. Let me give you an example. When your wife asks you for something, something as simple as, what do you want to eat for dinner? There'll be a lot of men who will say, Miss Jibo, oh, nataka nini. Your wife has asked you for leadership, you have pushed it back on her. It's something as simple as that. She's asked you, what do you want to eat for dinner? And you tell her, I don't know, do whatever you want. Isn't that abdicating your leadership? She's asked you for guidance and you have refused to give her guidance. Whenever your wife asks you, what do you think of this? Give your opinion. If you need time to think about it, say, can you give me until evening and I'll give me an hour and I'll give you an answer. From now on, train yourself to always give an answer, an appropriate answer when your wife asks you for something. Isn't that something very practical? Isn't that something which you are laughing because you know it is true? You're like, or you are so clueless, you don't know how to make a decision, you just leave it to your wife. Man, you need to take leadership. This is how you begin to lead. If you have a rebellious wife, these are some of the small steps that you take to begin to change how your household is running. You make decisions. When she asks you for something, you make a decision. And if you suggest something, or if she asks you for direction and you give an answer and then she says, no, I think I'll do something else, you say, no. You asked me for leadership, you asked me for my opinion, now you have to do what I said. You don't allow her to do something else, because that also shows that her heart is still rebellious. So you say no. Single men, when you are seeking to court a lady, don't ask her where she wants to go for a date. Make a decision, take her somewhere. Tell her to meet you at this place. Don't ask her, unajisikia kukula nini? Mkae hapo mkiangaliana. No, make the decision, ask her. Tell her, we're going to be eating at this place. If she says, no, I would like us to go to this other place, you say, well, no. Maybe we can consider that next time, but for now, let's go here. You need to be making decisions. If your wife is constantly stressed, she's always always in a foul mood when you get home, don't just say, my wife is just a grumpy woman. I didn't know this about her. Maybe she's overwhelmed. Maybe you need to go and have the hard conversation with her. How much time are you spending on Facebook every day or on social media? That when I get home, jioni ikifika ndio you're hurrying to do things and you're so stressed. Or if she's not even doing those things, maybe you can tell her. I remember telling my wife recently, it's better to eat a simple meal where there is peace. That's what Proverbs says, than to be in a house of feasting where there is strife. I told her, if on those stressful evenings, tunaweza kula mayai na chai na mkate, but we do it happily. Lessen her burden. Tell her, you don't need to do this. If you're always getting late whenever you go somewhere with your wife, sit down one day. Instead of getting angry with her, sit down and observe her. And you'll observe that sometimes women have they focus on small things, they're not able to see the bigger picture. The bigger picture is we get out of the house and go. But she says, no, I need to sweep the house. But we're going. You tell her, no, you don't need to do that. This is what we're going to do. Let's get the kids ready. Let's get them in the car. If we need to buy something, we can buy it on the way. Something for them to eat, we can buy it on the way. Or we can prepare for it the day before. One thing that you can try, which I think is quite helpful, have weekly meetings with your wife. It can be a 20-minute meeting where you're saying, this is what we need to do this week. So you align your calendars. What are the things that we need to do this week? And then you can have check-ins every evening on, were we able to do the things that we needed to do this week? That can help if you're saying, if your wife is also considering that we don't, that's one of the ways you can begin talking again, like talking vizuri, like, by planning and synchronizing your week together. Then you need to love your wife sacrificially. You need to be use your authority as a husband for the good of your wife. I asked you earlier, how many of you can remember the last time you said no to your wife? And here we're not even talking about she wanted to buy something and he said no. Like, when was the last time you said no to your wife? She wanted to do something which seemed good, but you see, I think that one, ukifanya a few times, it'll stress you out. Are you willing to have that conversation with your wife about her losing weight so that she looks beautiful for you, and then also so that she's healthy and is not sick when you're older? But now if you don't encourage your wife to lose the weight after she gets children, what's that going to predispose her to in the future? Diabetes, high blood pressure. So why have that hard conversation with her? Tell her you want to see her looking beautiful. And I know sometimes we are uncomfortable saying these things, but think about it. A man can love his wife, but she's no longer as physically attractive to him as she was before. Ukweli ama uongo? He loves his wife, right? But she's not as physically attractive as she could be, right? So for health and for the good of you, and men are attracted to what? Men are visually attracted to curves. That's how God designed us, and that's how Scripture talks about it, right? It says, be intoxicated by her breast. It doesn't say be intoxicated by her round shape. Right? Right? Now, I don't know whether it's because I speak like this that they invited me, but I am a pastor, but I am also a realist. And this is how, Kwani, when you look out there, when a man, how do you define a beautiful woman? An objectively beautiful woman. Is it a woman who is round in shape or a woman who is curvy? Huh? And exactly. So, and I know it sounds unholy for me to say this, but this is the ultimate, and by the way, it's because of the way our lifestyle is organized today that we have more of this. If you see pictures of people in olden times, there was less of this and more of this. So it's a lifestyle thing. But again, even if you're not willing to talk to her on the basis of this, talk to her about, do you want to live long for your children without challenges? So care about her health. She may be angry and upset, but that is to her benefit. Dwell with her wisely. Again, here I think I want to say something that's very important that feminism has made us forget. Listen, men, Your wife is a woman. She's not a man. Sometimes we push our wives hard because we want to treat them like our fellow brother. But a woman is a woman. Let her cry when she wants to cry. Don't be hard on her. Let her be soft. First, encourage her to be soft. Don't forget that she is a woman. Don't forget that she thinks like a woman. No, sometimes fights happen because you forget that your wife is a woman and not a man. No, there is a place for telling yourself, yeah, she's just a woman. That's how she sees things. You can do that even while still leading your family for it's good. So remember that she is a woman. Protect your wife. Protect her from, I don't know how you will take this. So my wife has never taken a job where she works outside the home. I don't want her to be exposed to bad men. I believe my wife is a faithful woman, but I also don't want to put her in a place where she can be seduced by another man. An evil man. Remember, the world is full of evil men, right? The world is full of evil men. So protect your wife from that. Protect your wife spiritually. Listen, for those of you men if your wife goes to another church, I would assume that the reason why you come to this church is because you believe this church teaches the right doctrine. You protect your wife from if women are more easily deceived by false teachers, then you protect your wife from false teachers. It may mean having a hard conversation with her about, I don't think you should listen to this person. Or I don't like what that church teaches. But you protect her. It's not just physical protection. You protect her from financial recklessness. You protect her from manipulative relatives where necessary. Protect her from physical danger. You protect her from yourself. Surely, men, your wife should not be afraid of you. Why should your wife be afraid of you? Your wife should be confident that even when you disagree with one another, she can trust that, hata akakutusi aje, not that you will encourage that you will not say, sawa, that's how, wanawake wako na mdomo, mimi niko na nguvu. Right? But then also, let me tell you this, it sounds counterintuitive, but a wife who learns to be told no feels more safe and secure. Because if you're a pushover to her, she instinctively thinks that this man can't protect me. You must find the balance between leading without tyranny and serving without abdicating your role. So ask your wife for her opinion, but then also make the decision. When things go bad, don't say that I followed your counsel. Say, I made the decision. Even if your wife blames herself and says, mi ndio nilifanya tufanye hivyo, no, you say, no, the responsibility is mine. I made the decision. It was my decision, not yours. Because, let me ask you, the marriage creates a one flesh union. You become one organism. That means, how many heads does an organism have? One. Which means, how many votes does an organism have? One. So the family has only one vote, and that vote belongs to the husband. Even the man who fails to lead is making the decision to allow his wife to lead, which is a perversion. And that man, by the way, is always resentful. For those of you men who have allowed your wives to rule over you, aren't you resentful of her? and of yourself. And there you have your answer. A godly man pursues is not only a worshiper, not only pursues marriage to become a husband, but is also a father. A father. This word patriarchy, do you know what the word patriarchy means? Now, in the Greek, this is the word for father in Greek. Anarchy is what? The lack of order or the lack of rule. So a patriarch is father rule. That's why Roman Catholic fathers are called fathers. It's that idea of father rule. Patriarchy is basically father rule. Father rule means that can women be fathers? So that should tell you something about why single mother households are usually produce dysfunctional children. Not always, not all of them, but usually that is the trend. So, father rule means that men rule in their homes or households, families. I want to do something for you interesting here. A church is comprised of what? Families. So, therefore, if the household is ruled by men, and that is the order, the church, which is is the household of God, should be ruled by who? By men. A nation is comprised of what? Families, households. If the household is ruled by men, that means who should be ruling in the nation? There goes the office of the women rep. There goes the office of the female governor, the female this. There goes the 2/3 gender rule nonsense. Right, the women like to say that, there can be a time when there will be 2/3 women and we'll need to fight for 1/3 men. That will never happen. Kama mmekaa hapa. If you don't like to be told what to do by a woman, do you think we're going to ever elect 2/3 women? Are we? See, tunashindwa sahi, we are that sexist. Tunashindwa sahi elect here. We have to create 47 offices of women who do nothing. What do women reps do? They do nothing. What have they done for women? Nothing. So, that's what patriarchy is, men ruling everywhere. But father rules, so it begins in a man ruling his own. A man needs to be a father. Man needs to desire children. And he must receive them as a stewardship from God. Man must remember that, you need to remember that the children that you have are a stewardship that you've been given by God. And you will give an account for them. They have been entrusted to you. They are not merely mouths to feed. They are not accessories. They are not inconveniences. They are not trophies. It's not just school fees. They are not just it's not just their future achievements to boast about. They are not merely little companions for your amusement. They are souls. They have eternal souls. And a father must recognize his responsibility to guide them to Christ. Must have Christ there. So you need to teach them about God. Listen, in a world full of feminism, you need to teach them about the goodness of authority. Teach them about work. For those of you who have sons, When was the last time you challenged your son to do something hard? From when they're young, you need to teach them to do hard things. You need to find hard things for them to do so that they can learn to be what? Hardworking. Yes, responsible, hardworking. You need to teach your sons about what it means to be a man. That means you model it for them. You and your wife have a responsibility to model for your children what a functional relationship between a husband and a wife ought to look like. They won't learn that from others. They learn it from you. Which means you need to be a present father. That's why I was saying, when you get home, please don't just be on your phone. Talk to your children. Challenge them. Sit with them as they do. When they ask you for help with something, sit with them and challenge them. Don't give them the whole help. Walk with them. Naturally, men are more likely to challenge their children to push themselves than a mother. A mother is more likely to run to her child who has fallen down, whereas a father is more likely to say, get up, hata kama analia kuja nione. A mother will run to where a father is going to say, Abu simama kuja uone, kuja nione muumia wapi. That's important. And here, by the way, is where I think a lot of men fail. A lot of men fail to recognize their actual need with their children. Let me give you an example. So you want to deal with your child a certain way. Your wife, in her feminine way, feels that you're being too hard on the child. And what she does, she says, no, simfanyie hivyo, and you pull back. What is the right thing to do? You need to say, hey, this child needs a mother and a father. Let me be the father. Wewe kuwa mother, mimi nikuwe father. You need to remind her. I had to do that with my wife. I say, yeah, I agree with you, but you have that way of dealing with it, which is a motherly way. I have my own fatherly way. So don't allow your wife's desire to nurture and protect to keep you from doing your role of challenging them to grow. A lot of, I've seen so many families where the father was basically abdicating his role, and the sons that came from that home are men who they're not motivated to do hard things. Why? Because the father never did that, because the mother was always complaining and the husband never told the wife, no, you need to let me father these children. So you also need to instruct them in the ways of the Lord. Teach them the Bible. Teach them sound doctrine. Teach them a catechism. You also need to discipline them. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. Discipline means use of force. You instruct them. Basically, this is an overly simplistic way you basically need to do two things with your children. You create an environment in which you can instruct them, which means that just like the police would deal with lawbreakers and create a sense of fear of breaking the law, you also need to do that with your children. Your children need to fear breaking your rules, because there will be consequences. When they are younger, you use the rod. As they grow older, there are other ways. Like now, if a child when you tell them to do something, or you tell them to stop doing something, or you tell them they can do it later, they say, ata sitafanya hiyo. You say, okay, sawa, ata utafanya. And even when that time comes when you had said they're going to do it, you don't allow them to do it. You don't allow them to do it. You allow them to eat the fruit of their consequences. If you have a child who is refusing to eat a certain meal, you require them. If they don't eat it, you take the plate away and you don't give them any other food. A mother may not be able to do this, but a father can. You take the food away, and when they are hungry and desperate, you give them the food that they were refusing to eat. If they reject it, you take it away again. You win, what is it called? The war of attrition. Is it attrition, right? As I said, a person in authority needs to get their way. But what regulates that is that you're doing it for their good, not just for your own personal pleasure. What are you seeking to teach your child? That you need to receive everything with thanksgiving. It's impolite kukataa chakula that has been set before you. You need to, if your child is a picky eater, it's because you failed to teach them that they must eat everything. No, our children know. They know that they must eat everything. I always remind them, no, we eat it, we receive it with thanksgiving. And there they eat it. And they must eat it. They must. If they have to eat that meal for the whole week, they must. And you win. You teach them. And it's a momentary thing. You win that battle that wewe ndio mwenye kusema. And then that makes it easier that they now learn. You can now teach them the principles. Why do we do this? So you instruct and you discipline. You must model godliness for them. Model manhood to sons. Model fatherly strength to daughters. Listen, your daughters will be attracted to the kind of man that you are. Your daughters will be attracted to the kind of man that you are. To a man that is like you. Your sons will become a lot like you. So you need to set an example of godliness. And then as a man, you also need to think generationally. You need to think generationally in terms of instruction. So Psalm 78:67. That the next generation might know them, the children yet unborn, and arise to tell them to their children. You need to think beyond the present. As you work hard, don't just work hard to build a nice and comfortable life for yourself. Work hard to set your children up for the future. And what does Proverbs say? A righteous man leaves an inheritance for what? His children's children. Which can tell you what I think about those parents who treat both their sons and their daughters as their retirement package. There is something immoral about that. You should be striving to leave something to your children, not be dependent on them in your old age. So even now as you work hard with that in mind, that I would want to give something to my children. My children don't have to, there is no virtue in saying that my son must start exactly where I started. If you teach them financial responsibility, you can entrust them with something of value. So if you have a company, have your son come and work for you and begin to earn money even when he's young. Leave a legacy for the future generations. And very quickly here, I've actually gone over the time by a few minutes. These ones I don't need to expound on them. A man needs to be a provider. Provide for your... provision is masculine responsibility. Even if your wife works, who is meant to be the provider? You. The buck stops with you. Always have in your mind that your wife can quit her job anytime, but you don't have that luxury. I've seen this trend online, though thankfully it's not here, of the stay-at-home husband. Abomination. May fire and brimstone fall on that practice. It is nothing but something from the pits of hell. No, it is your responsibility to provide. And it's a lot harder today because women are taking up jobs that men can have to provide for their families. I know it sounds sexy saying this, but having women in the workforce increases unemployment for men. Because every job a woman takes, a man could have taken and provided for his family. There's also another thing. They also increase demand. And you remember the law of supply and demand? The more the supply, the lower the value. Sindio? So the more the workforce, the less men earn. That's why it's harder for a man today to earn enough to provide for his family if his wife is not working. But I'm not a policy changer. If I was running for president and I said that as my campaign slogan, I would be taken home. I would not have the opportunity. Yeah, so that means you need to be a hard worker, work hard, get up early, especially when you're young, work intensively hard to increase your capacity to provide for your family and to meet all the needs that you have. Then you also need to manage resources wisely. The book of Proverbs speaks not only of increasing your income, and working hard, but also of what? Stewarding what you have properly. And then you need to provide leadership, protection, instruction, discipline. It's not just financial. Don't be like those men who said that sinilipa school fees. That's not all a man provides. Is your value only a paycheck? Is your value only the money? Are you saying that you can be replaced by money? Fifthly, a man needs to be a protector. We've already talked about this. Protect your family from financial ruin. Protect your family from physical threats. Protect your family from spiritual threats. Protect your family from their own depravity. Right? Protect your children from their bad habits. Even protect your wife even from her own sinfulness by guiding her and instructing her. Set the tone for your family. Be an emotional rock that, as I said, be the thermostat in your family, not a thermometer. Be a thermostat, not a thermometer. And then finally, not only a worshiper, but also a churchman. One of the roles of men is you need to submit to the church's ordinary means of grace. What do I mean by the ordinary means of grace? Going to church on Sunday, ensuring that you and your family are in church on Sunday to hear the word preached, the word being preached. Ensure that the believers in your household attend the sacraments. They partake of the Lord's Supper. Prayer, fellowship, correction, elders, other brothers, the Lord's Day. Ensure that these are things that you are leading your family in. Then also serve. Serve in your church according to your abilities. Not just in your church, but also in your not just in the church, but also in your community. Seek how you may serve. And let your family see you serving. Then cultivate brotherhood. Men need men. A man needs an older man to learn from, peers to talk with, and younger men to strengthen. One of the, and it may seem as though I'm speaking too much into this, but one of the problems that has been created by women going into the workforce is that the workplace is no longer a male-only space. Men need male-only spaces. We need we need male-only things. Because men need to talk to men as men. Men can talk to one another in a way that they can't talk to women. Because women are softer, right? Think about how men tease one another. They make fun of one another. How do we deal with bad behavior in our fellow men? We tease that man and embarrass him until he stops doing that thing, right? Right? That's how we push one another. That's how we sharpen one another. You can't do that with... If women sit amongst men, they'll be offended by how men naturally speak to one another. And I would say that because of fewer men-only spaces, men today speak more feminine than they ought to. Men today are more concerned, I didn't like how you said it. That's a very feminine thing to say. What do you mean? Why do you care how I said it? Is what I said true or not? Right? That's what matters. Sawa basi, I said it in the wrong way. Are you going to change or not? Right? That's how... And you have men policing one another, behaving like women. Men should be hard and talk to one another straight. One of the things that I learned when I'm usually a straight talker. I try to be a straight talker. I hate ambiguity. I usually tell people but one of the things that I have learned over time is that I need to speak to my wife in a less blunt way. Because she's a woman. And my wife can tell you that in the first years of our marriage, I used to just say it as it is. And she would accept it, but she would be hurt and all that. Then as I grew, I learned, I need to be softer with her. But when I'm talking with a man, I'll be as you're new mama, watch your mama bana. Like a man doesn't need to. Why are you concerning yourself with that as a man? You're new. I can be more firm, more. Think of how God speaks to men in the Bible. He doesn't. And think of Christ. Christ calls Herod a fox. In today's world, Christ would be told, no, that's not how you say it. You should, even when you're criticizing someone, you should. But that's how Jesus talked. Are we saying Jesus was sinless? Are we saying that he sinned? No, he was just masculine. So men need to talk like men, and brotherhood helps that. The way we will deal with the women tendencies that we have in ourselves is by spending time with other men, and men being comfortable in those spaces to say, we may not necessarily talk like this everywhere, but when we're here together, this is how we talk. We brush against one another. We challenge one another. We come close to blows, but in speaking strongly for our convictions, but we push one another. That's how men will grow. And I think in the church, that's something that we can grow in. We prepare one another for future usefulness. When you're young, you are seeking to grow yourself, but we must always have a view that you can fill in the spaces that are left by those who leave positions of leadership. Can I tell you something? Recently, I traveled to my wife's up-country, and I was speaking with I don't know whether to call him brother-in-law. He is the husband of my wife's sister. So he was speaking, and he was saying that he feels that he's not going to vote for... Now, I'm not here championing... He's not going to vote for a young man again He says young men need a lot more growing up to do than old men. Well, young men are more greedy. Of course, he's referring to our last two presidents. That's his opinion. You're saying an old man is more settled, he's more content with his situation, and he's more knowledgeable. We need to grow ourselves in such a way that we can be in positions of influence to the good of the next generation. You know, we're always complaining about change, how we want change. Listen, what is better for a country than for a man who's grown in being good at being a man and being a godly Christian man, who has had experience leading in a smaller capacity, and then now he takes up a political office and is now leading the country? That's what we need. We need more experienced men who have lived out godly lives, virtuous lives, as the people that we vote for. So be that kind of a man. Strive to be that kind of a man. Don't just be a man who is thinking about how I can grow my wealth so that I can buy myself fancy things. No, think about how can I grow in such a way that I benefit those who come after me. That's what a man is supposed to be like.